Hello and welcome to the Grass Valley Training Center. I'm Olaf Bahr. In this episode, I want to dive a little deeper into the DynoZoom tool. And I've gotten some feedback from operators of what works best for them, as well as from our engineering team of how best to use the system. And I wanted to share that with you. So let's get started. To access the DynoZoom tool, it's obvious. We go to the tools, and here it says DynoZoom. So in the event that the App Center tool for the particular playback channels hasn't been set up correctly to live streaming, or in that case, pan and zoom is enabled, then you'll end up seeing monitor on this screen. And you want to make sure that you go into the App Center tool and change those settings, both for live streaming. 8 megabits is probably ideal, and make sure that you also have the pan and zoom turned on for that particular channel as well. So I'm going to double tap on the DynoZoom tool, and it opens up the tool right away. And here you can see some presets across the row right below the video. And so what this is I actually automatically set these different sizes. So I might go half size and I set 1, and that gives me this box in the middle as a default. And then I'm going to go ahead and pinch and zoom slightly smaller, and I'm going to set 2. And now that saved that size and location in the 2 box. And then I'm going to make it really small and for extreme cases, and I'm going to go set 3. So I've now selected those, and so now I have 3 different sizes. So if I hit 2, it's bigger. If I hit 1, it's bigger. And you have up to 10 presets that you get to use. And why this becomes effective is in a live zoom or even a preview mode, this becomes very efficient as far as workflow, and I don't have to try and scale with my fingers, pinch and zoom. Again, an added step of speed. So what you get in a live zoom mode, this orange box is live. It's what the actual zoom part is on the output of the DynoZoom. We go into a live zoom mode, and what we get then is, like I said, is as we move the box, it's instant feedback. The output is following where this box is moving. All right. In a preview mode, I get a green box. And what ends up happening here is that when we either way hit the take button, it actually jumps to that size. So if I hit 2, that's the preset of where it's going to go when I hit the take button, and it automatically snaps to that size. What we can do is also turn on a transition. So I enable the transition, it's lit light blue. When I go to set duration, I can tell it that I want it to take 1 second, 15 frames to make the transition happen. And this again is in a live scenario. So if I hit now a set location and I move this box to over here, it will now take 1 second, 15 frames to get to that location every time that I move it and hit take. Now I also have the ability to move the box, and now when I double tap in the box, it actually goes to that location. Now I don't have to move the box in advance to that location. It's where I end up double tapping with my hand, with my finger. So when I double tap on his glove, it'll go to that location. If I double tap on his hat, it goes to that location. So that's a pretty clear mode of operation of where I'm going to go next. So 2 options is to double tap or use the finger and hit the take button, whichever one's more efficient for you. The next thing is, of course, is also 2-finger double touch on the screen. It's 1 tap, but again, double tap to zoom in, 2-finger, single touch to go full. Now, one added step, which is really cool, is also if I do one more 2-finger tap on the screen, it actually goes to the original location and size of where it came. So one more time, I'm going to double tap to go to his shoulder, 2-finger, zoom full. If I do 2-finger single tap, zoom in, and it goes back to that original location. Real nice, efficient way of getting back and forth in those areas. Now, in the event that I want to use keyframes, I'm going to turn off my preview and I'm going to turn off the live zoom, and now I can add keyframes. I'm going to tell a story with this action. This can be live action. Those keyframes will go right onto the record train, or I can do them onto clips. And here's what's really cool. So as I move forward and I want to see the rotation of the ball after it left his glove, I'm going to actually add a keyframe full right here. So a full add keyframe, you can see on the timeline it added a little white arrow. And as I jog forward, I now want to zoom in. I'm going to pinch and zoom or use my set 3 box. and I'm going to use this. That's pretty tight. I'm actually going to zoom out just a little bit, make it a number 2 size box, and add a keyframe. And as I jog and see the rotation, I can actually change to where I need it to be. So I'm already looking at the frame of where it's going to be, but I'm not adding a keyframe yet. That's where I want the keyframe to be in exact position when this contact with ball and bat happens. But what I want to do is get there a little early. So I'm going to make sure that I add my keyframe out here, back a little ways. So you can see how the box is moving and scaling with those keyframes, and it got to the contact of bat and ball when I needed it to get there. All right. So it adds those keyframes. And then again, I can start with some other modes and say, well, I'd like to go back to full and add another keyframe. And there you can see what's going to actually happen. We're going to go to the contact. Oh, what you can see is that I've actually added keyframes without holding that box in the position long enough. So what ended up happening is it zoomed into the contact of the bat and the ball, and then it already started on its way, on its travel out to being a full frame shot. So what I need to do is add one more keyframe in there to hold that box tight while the bat and the ball makes contact. So now what I have to do is delete a keyframe. Using these keys, I can actually navigate to the different keyframes, and that takes me to where I was last in a position. So I'm going to actually go back a keyframe. I've got that box, all right, and I want to delete this other one that's out here. So this is the full, so I'm going to shift, delete, and it deleted that keyframe. And see how it kept the original, the last location of the size of that box? I'm going to actually want to back up just a little bit here. I'm going to add a new keyframe to here, and now add a full one out here. What this does is it ends up holding the box size for a few frames when the ball makes contact and it's not traveling on that trajectory out. So now I'm back to the full screen and I can add additional keyframes out here. So that's another added value of DynoZoom, is the fact that those keyframes stay with the clip. Once I eject the clip and introduce a recording, a live recording, or introduce a new clip, those keyframes get ejected and I get to work with new ones, or I can reintroduce that clip again and those keyframes show up again. Where this really is a great idea is, like, let's say hockey. I can take the action of the puck and follow the path of the puck, how it got passed from player to player, and tell that story. Or if I want to follow the guy who scored the goal, then I can actually just follow his path of how he got open, received the pass, and then scored the goal. Or I could even tell a third story from all the same clip just by making copies of them within the highlights and updating or changing the keyframes or adding new keyframes. I could then follow the defense, how they got out of position, and we're left open to scoring a goal. So again, great ideas of how we can tell multiple stories with the same clip just by utilizing keyframes. And once again, if they're on the live recording, I can still use those arrow keys on the Dyno controller to navigate back to those keyframes. So here I'm going to go ahead and eject that clip. I'm going to double tap and load a new clip into the DynoZoom tool. So new clip, I'm going to go ahead and jog forward here. I'm going to start full, add a keyframe. As it gets closer to the play, I'm going to choose maybe a size 2 box and really get down into here of where the play is going to happen, closer to the bag. Add a keyframe. Again, jog forward. I really like that moment there if the glove really touched the other player. So I'm going to go into a size 3, really get in there nice and tight. And so I want to get there just a beat before and add a keyframe. So here again, story is it starts full. We see the player running. We see the catch and how it gets closer to him making the play, and really nice and tight there for the end play to see if the player was safe or not. Once again, if I go back and double tap and load another clip, go back to the tool, you can see that the keyframes exist there with the previous one. I can navigate to these keyframes. And again, if I go back to that other clip, double tap to load it, you can see the keyframes are still there as well. All right, so I want to take this one step further, which is the fact that I've got keyframes added to these clips. Now remember, on the output of the K2 Summit, you always have that clean. So replay is replay, whatever's coming out of the Summit. And then you have a Zoom output coming out of the Zoom feed as well. So you have 2 sources going to the router, to the switcher, and then you get to choose from that. So what I want to do next is actually introduce these clips into a playlist and take full advantage of that Zoom. Now again, when I put those clips in the playlist and edit them, I can edit the full size that's never zoomed, or I can also edit through the zoom tool by loading a playlist with clips that already have keyframes. And this is really cool. Check this out. So to start with, I'm going to go back, and I've got 2 clips here that I'm going to throw into a playlist. So I'm going to select Shift, select them both, and say Add to Playlist. So I've added those into the playlist. If I actually go to the playlist, there they are. I can add a transition if I'd like. I'm going to go ahead and say I want ME1, or I'm going to do all ME so that they both get it. If I had more clips, you can just double tap to add that, and it'll fill that in. So my playlist is built. I'm happy with that. That's the order that I want them. And now I want to edit this. So if I cue the playlist, 3 punches on the PL button, and go to the tool, I can now actually see the playlist. Here's the 2 clips. You can see them laid out with the 2 sets of keyframe points between the 2 clips. So now I'm going to trim this playlist to how I like it. As I jog forward with the jog wheel and see how that play starts and it zooms in, I'm very happy with how this play plays out. But one thing that I think I want to cover is the fact there's more to this play that I just don't want. It really was about the contact, the pitch. That's great. I'm going to actually get out right about there and say out for that particular clip. It actually made the edit. And you could see the shift of these keyframes from that other clip that came from over here and slid over because I've shortened the entire timeline. As I jog forward into the next clip, then of course I want less of this front end of this clip of where it really starts to be full. So I'm going to say there, that's where I'd like the clip to actually start. So I'm going to mark a new in by hitting in on the controller. And now we've updated this. So we've gone from that play to this play. And again, if there's less of it that I want on the back end, I'm really not interested in the rest of this play, I can already hit out and I've trimmed that entire playlist. I can also add more keyframes if I want to, again, to this clip in the playlist. So if I wanted to go full here and show some reaction, I still can say full and add another keyframe. And now I've actually updated this clip in the playlist. So very nice and efficient. So what we end up seeing is that when I cue the playlist, go back to my tool and hit play, we can see the path of the entire zoom tool being in action, and what the effect is on the output of the DynoZoom. And again, what's really fantastic about this whole scenario is the fact that we've edited a playlist within the DynoZoom tool, and we can also have slow motion control that retains that same capability that we've always had. So there you have a couple different ways to add zoom to your production. So you can either way do live zoom, very effective. I really like using those presets, and I tend to use 3 different sizes. Again, the preview by moving that box around and either way hitting take, but I'm a big fan of just double tapping and having it go to that location. Make sure that you have those transitions set to the right speed that you like, otherwise it'll just snap right there. And then the next thing is, of course, is using keyframes and using that to your advantage. Now, one other side note is that as you save your clips or archive them to an external device, as long as you export it as a GXF wrapper, then you end up getting to retain those keyframes with the clip. It actually becomes part of the XML data. And this way, when you ingest that clip at a later time, all those keyframes still remain and you don't have to do the work anymore. So that's really cool. As always, continue to visit our Grass Valley website and look for new video clips. You can also look at YouTube and just search for the terms K2 Dyno Replay. You'll see more videos, more than you probably want. Nonetheless, until next time, take care.